everyone. Welcome back to the Apartment 6 podcast. I'm Jess.
And I'm Marissa.
We actually recorded the podcast that you're about to hear a couple of weekends ago, and we decided not to post it. And instead, we decided to stay silent on our social media and on the places that you would normally listen to this, like Apple Podcast and Spotify. And instead, we wanted to amplify Black voices, which is something that we did on our own personal social media accounts because that's where we have the most of our following, and a lot of people that follow our podcast Instagram also follow us personally, and so that's where we could have the biggest impact and amplify the most voices.
Yeah, this podcast is, while we always hope that it's relatable to a lot of other people, it is pretty centered on us and our lives. So it really didn't feel right to talk so much about ourselves during this time, because
Definitely.
We're really trying to be looking outward at the world we live in and not so much inward. I mean, we want to look inward in the right ways in terms of recognizing, implicit bias and internalized racism and all these things that are really difficult to look inside yourself for. But we didn't want to be selfish in the way we did that. So in terms of like roses and thorns, we didn't want to be picking like the happiest moment from our lives this week, because that just like didn't sit right with us, and it felt a little tone deaf.
Yeah, so when we recorded this episode previously, we did include roses and thorns, and we had our thorn be collective, and it was the two of us talking about events that had happened the week prior, which was the murder of George Floyd and just the racial injustices that continue to happen in this country and have been happening for a long time, whether they make headlines or not. And so that was what felt right at the time. But as we learned and as we sort of looked at what other people in the podcast community were doing, other people who are YouTubers, people who have larger platforms, and just white people in general with a following, we decided that we wanted to follow suit and take the time to amplify Black voices and, like Marissa said, look inwardly in the correct way. And so the episode that you're about to hear is going to be from a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to just bypass roses and thorns this week, and we're going to take you right into our voice memo of the week, which is a newer segment.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope that you'll consider donating. We have a list of places you can donate on our Instagram under one of our photos. I believe the photo is called
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we hope that you're also taking some time in the recent weeks, but also always, to think about how you might contribute to racism, even without knowing it and without consciously feeling any negative feelings towards the Black community. We all contribute to racism when we uphold the structures that put it in place. So we hope that you're taking time to reflect, and we hope that you'll consider donating to some of the funds listed on our Instagram.
Yeah, definitely.
And with that, here's the episode.
So this segment is fairly new to us, but we are now doing a voice memo segment where, if you didn't catch it last time, we always used to send these voice memos to each other back and forth. And each episode, we're going to pick a voice memo from the other person to surprise them with, and just kind of chat about it and see what their reaction is. So I don't know if anyone caught this in the last episode, but I happened to mention that I like to do things chronologically. Mm-hmm. So I said, for my first voice memo choice, I'm going to go back to the beginning.
Oh my gosh.
So I tried to find the very first one.
Okay.
And so this one, it's from September of 2018.
Right.
And it was called like My Very Own Podcast. So it was like the concept was very new.
Stop.
And this one was only like 8 minutes long, I think. So it wasn't like we hadn't fully come into the form yet.
And it's me speaking, and
Yes.
I titled that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is like the inception of the idea. So I'm going to play it now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited.
I wonder if that person was beeping at me. Anyway, I'm in Boston. I'm picking my mom up from a job. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to just like break up or just stay together. Like I want to do something to change things, like either to put more effort in or to like leave each other alone for a few weeks. And yeah, I mean, again, I filmed. I'm a YouTuber. I recorded like literally like 25 minutes of me talking about this and like giving a lot more detail, but I just feel bad like sending that to you. It's kind of like my own version of a podcast. But I think you're already on the train. It's 4:46 right now.
That's it.
Wow. Okay. I actually remember. I mean, I think I was driving in Seaport. My mom was a court reporter, for those who don't know. And so she frequently had to go to law offices and report their depositions. Mm-hmm. And there were a few different offices that I got familiar with. Like there was one in Post Office Square, there was one in Government Center, there was one in Seaport, like several that she like frequented, and one at State Street. And I think that I remember like sitting on the side of the road in Seaport and being like, oh my God, she needs to get the heck down here because you can't sit there for that long. Mm-hmm. It was always like a rush thing where like my mom would come out and like we'd like quickly like swap seats in the car, and it was like a whole to do. But yeah, that was the beginning of the podcast. I guess I'm the one that coined it.
Mm-hmm. That's like proof that you were responsible for the whole thing.
Proof I've been forcing you into this from the beginning.
I just thought it was so funny that at that point you were like, I don't want to make you listen to a 25-minute thing. But then that became like what was normal for us to do.
Oh yeah, 25 minutes is like the average.
So I just love that you were like, I recorded 25 minutes, but I didn't want to send you it. But like little did we know we'd be doing that for like a year.
Yeah.
It was cute. I just love so many things about that because it's like we often used to record them in the car, and it's very clear you're in the car.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're like, I'm in Boston is funny to hear because like now we live there, so it would be weird for us to say like I'm in Boston because that's just a given.
Yeah.
So like a lot of things about that just kind of like are very quintessential to what those recordings were.
the really long like the roaring car beep at the beginning, which is like so like wow, did I even have to say that I was in Boston? I mean, it's kind of obvious from that. That's so, and you can hear some of the content of what I'm talking about. I was talking about a looming breakup that was about to happen, and I think that's what we mean when we say like we would send voice memos back and forth. Like whatever was going on in our lives, we would just talk about and send it to the other person and be like, what do you think? So that was an example.
Do you remember why you decided to do that for the first time?
I think no. I don't I don't know. It was
a long time ago
completely, but if I had to say, it would be like I was driving, because I remember like I said, I recorded 25 minutes of me driving to visit my mom, and then I recorded those 8 minutes, I guess. Mm-hmm. Waiting for her. And so it was me not wanting to text it all out. I've always sort of been like that. Like I want to like talk about it, and feeling like I couldn't really talk to you because you were at work. And I was like, well, she's going to be on the train. Why don't I just record something for her and she can listen to it, and then she can text me back, or she can record or something. I think that had to be I think it was like born out of laziness of like just and wanting to be understood, which is like always my big thing. It's like sometimes I feel like texting, I end up just going like going in circles trying
Yeah.
to explain myself through text, whereas like if you just hear my voice, you'll kind of get it and
Yeah,
get where I'm at.
tone does a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It goes a long way.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Would
so
we
funny.
even be here today if it wasn't for that first voice memo? I don't know.
I know, and I love that I was like, I made, the stink about the 25-minute thing, and now like we have like an hour-long show.
I know, that's just what I think is so funny. It's just cute to look back. But yeah, September 2018, that's when it started.
Heck yeah. Yeah, that all checks out.
And now, a year and a half later, is that correct math?
Mm-hmm.
A year and a half later from then, we are now living together. And have a podcast. And that brings us into our topic this week.
Oh, yeah.
You forgot?
Yeah, well, I just like wasn't thinking about the fact that you were trying to like make a segue.
My segue was so smooth.
It was I didn't really get that that's what you were doing, but that, yeah, totally.
It just came all natural and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we live together now, and our topic this week is all about moving in with your best friend.
It's true. That is the topic. I think that, we see people talking about like what it's like to move in with a significant other.
True.
And we hear about like, oh my gosh, like never move in with your friend. Like you won't end up friends by the end of it. But we had a different experience. So far, at least.
Oh my God.
Just kidding. But yeah, so I think that in order to explain like why we felt comfortable moving in with each other and why it's worked out for us, we have to go back to the beginning, like you said. So first of all, Marissa and I, if you listen to our first episode, you know how we met. We met in our a cappella group in college at the beginning of freshman year. And since then, we've played several roles. We were part of the same club. We were friends. We then became suite mates where we each had our own individual room, but we were within a 4-person suite.
We were also coworkers.
At a time. And then we also had leadership roles together.
Mm-hmm.
So to like paint you a picture, we became friends. Both of us were interested in executive board roles for our a cappella group. And so like at one point I was vice president and Marissa
my name is not Melissa.
Did you just hear that? It came out like that.
Yes. And I'll resent you for it forever. Just kidding.
So sorry. So we were both interested in e-board positions for our a cappella group. And so at one point I was vice president and Marissa was this thing called a cappella council representative. It's a long story.
If you know, you know, but if you don't, you don't need to know.
You don't need to know. It's a nice little position. Does that sound demeaning? I mean, I was also that position.
It's a good way to get into an executive board because it's not anything too intense, but you're still involved more than the average member.
Right. So I was that my freshman year, and then sophomore year I was vice president, and Marissa was a cappella council representative. Yeah. And then my junior year I was president, and Marissa was my vice president. And then senior year I went to LA, so I wasn't anything for a portion of time. And then I actually came back and did marketing because I have an interest in social media marketing. And Marissa was president. So throughout our college time, all of this is like, club e-boards are not a big deal in the role of like normal life. Like we don't think back on this often.
We were presidents of
yeah
like
we don't have big heads about it, but like when you're in college, it's like your college life is your whole life, and so at the time it felt like a big deal.
And I could certainly see, I mean, spoiler alert, it didn't for us, but I could certainly see how it could really put a lot of strain and possibly ruin friendships,
especially at Emerson where like clubs are like even more important than your classes.
There's like a certain intensity to the ways that you choose to spend your time at Emerson.
Yeah. So, junior year, for example, we had held the same job. We both had a campus job over the summer that allowed us to stay on campus and live together. Then we went on during actual junior year to again live together. And I was president and she was vice president, and we were friends and we shared friends. And so like we always had to know what it was like we always had to factor, we always
What?
So we always played multiple roles in each other's lives and
Yeah.
got used to seeing each other in multiple different facets of life. That sounds like
Why
way
is this
too.
so hard to explain?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think it wasn't as simple as we were friends throughout college who were equals in every sense of the word the whole entire time. Like, we had to experience some times where one of us was more involved making decisions than the other. I don't know. Like, I feel like it was a lot different for us than it would be for people who literally were just friends.
Yeah.
Like, we like you said, we had to play so many more roles than that obviously, like, friend was the first way I thought of you, but it's not the only way I thought of you.
Yeah, like when we worked our summer job together, it's like we were literally in charge of stuff. Like,
What a
at a given
time.
time. I'm like trying to explain, I'm like, what did we even do?
Yeah.
We were like
summer RAs, kind of.
Yeah, basically. So it's like we were like manning like a desk and dealing with lockouts and everything together. And like we were the only two like when we were on a shift together, we were the only two people like doing that
Yeah.
shift. Why is this so hard to explain?
I
think we're like overdoing it. I think we're killing it at this point.
The moral of this point is that I think it's boded well for us that we've had to play different roles in each other's lives, because roommates is just another role, and we already know how to take on different roles. So that's just a new one.
Right. And roommates as like dorm mates was already a thing for us.
Right. That's a big advantage.
And I think like all of this is to say that we have had discomfort arise from playing these different roles in each other's lives. There were times where we didn't necessarily agree with what the other person was doing, or we felt sort of slighted by the other person or something like that. For example, I remember that when I came back from LA and I was just like I was the marketing role for the group.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe even before I technically got that role, you asked me for advice about something having to do with AT. And I said to you, are you sure that that's like the best idea or something like that? And you got upset with me because you were like, I'm not asking you as a former president. I'm asking you as a friend. And I got upset with you because I was like, but I'm still one person. Even though I do have these different roles,
Yeah.
I'm still one human being. And so I can only like divide myself so much and divide my opinion so much. And so that's just like an example of like sort of and we lived together at the time. So then we just like went in our separate rooms and like left each other alone. And then like we also were classmates because we had some of the same exact classes.
Yeah, we did.
We really
crazy.
Played big in each other's lives.
Big. Yeah, but I think that not that I'm like wishing any uncomfortable moments on anybody, but I think the fact that we had some of those was important for us to know that we could trust each other to still have each other's back after moments like that.
Yeah, because what those moments ended up in was us having to sit down and talk things out. So like I think that one of the biggest things for us is that we've never actually had anything that feels like a fight.
Right.
It might technically on the outside be a fight, like we're disagreeing about something or we're arguing or we're upset with each other, but it never feels like that because we're not combative. We're not combative fighters. We're also like both sort of nervous about confrontation. So if anything, we're both kind of like sitting there like quaking and like we're like,
quaking,
no, you go first.
Accurate word.
But yeah, I mean, on this very couch that we sit on today,
Mm-hmm.
we've had to, since moving in, even like sit down on the couch and like hash things out and be like, why do you feel that way? Or, you know, I don't know why this bothers me, but it does. And we've had to just like go to the mat. for our friendship.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of goes to show you that the most important factor in deciding to move in with someone, that's your friend. Like, this is kind of a separate situation from like sussing out who you want to have be your roommate from like Craigslist or Facebook groups or whatever. But if you're like considering moving in with a friend or even a best friend, I think it's not as important to like think you're going to have fun together as it is to think that you can still have fun together after moments of discomfort.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of just have to accept that that's going to happen, but trust that it's not going to be any sort of end all be all of your friendship.
Yeah, because it will happen.
Yeah.
Like, there will be something that bothers you that you never would have thought would bother you, or that like, or you'll just feel some type of way and not really know why you're feeling that way.
Yeah.
I think that the other thing for us is like, so I'm pretty extroverted, Marissa's introverted,
Mm-hmm.
but we have very similar lifestyles. Like, we both are people who tend to want to stay home, or like if we go out, we're like, let's go home now.
Yeah.
And we're
like more homebody, like.
Yeah, and so it's not even that we have like the exact same schedules. Like, we both go to work, and well, right now we don't. I mean, we work, but we just go.
We don't
we
go
just stay
anywhere.
home.
Yeah.
It's not like that we have the exact same schedules, or that we value the exact same amount of socialization, because like I could definitely socialize a little bit more than Marissa. Like, Marissa will get more tired of it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more about like how we spend our free time. When it comes to our free time, we sort of enjoy the same things, and so it's easy to live with someone who you feel like you have a similar lifestyle. You have similar values, and like for us, we enjoy, hanging out on the couch and watching TV and having our quiet time in our rooms,
reading.
Yeah, and like we enjoy boundaries. We enjoy hanging out together, but also like knowing when we need our separate time. And we're both people who like will go outside and go for a walk, and we sort of like we know how to ask for what we need.
Yeah. But speaking of the boundaries thing,
Mm-hmm.
it was a source of discomfort for us before, when we were in college and we lived in a dorm together, because I used to think that setting a boundary, and I'm specifically talking about boundaries in terms of like alone time versus socializing time, I used to think that in order to set that boundary, I needed to do it in like a very physical, like closing other people off physically type of way.
Yeah.
So I would be like, if I want to sit in my room and read and I want quiet time, I need to shut my door to physically get that message across that like I don't want people hanging out with me at the time.
Yeah, well, because otherwise I feel like we would just, like, we being me and like our other suite mates would just like walk in your room and be like, what's up?
Yeah.
Especially because your room was like on the way to the door.
Yeah.
So it would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah. But I never realized how that would come across to other people. Like living with someone, and because I used to do it a lot. I mean, maybe I was going through something, honestly, but I used to do it like a lot of the time because I would just really just want to be alone. But we've had some moments where we've like talked through that kind of stuff, and I've hopefully gotten better about like realizing that you don't have to set every boundary physically. You can set boundaries by forming a mutual understanding and getting used to each other's habits, and expressing those types of wishes in more like loving ways instead of just being like, I'm shutting my door.
Yeah, and in like explicit terms, like you can like verbalize it and be like, I am feeling this way and I need this because of that. Yeah, but that was so hard for me to get because I was like, especially because our sophomore year of college, we spent every waking moment together. Literally, like every waking moment. We used to text each other like when we would get up. And we had like another friend too who like, it was like the three of us would chum around, and we would text like the group chat as soon as we woke up and be like, what are you guys doing? Want to like go to the dining hall? And then, they would be in my room until like 2 a.m. So
Yeah,
it was like crazy.
it's true.
And so I was so used to you being around all the time and constantly being available and wanting to hang out.
Yeah.
And I'm being an extrovert, I feed off of that energy. And so it's not that I enjoy my alone time and I'm fine with my alone time, but that I'll totally feed off of the energy that I'm getting from socializing. And so then junior year, when you had a single and you had your own room and like physically control your boundaries more, you exerting that power or exerting that ability made me feel really unloved. I was like, what? It was so new to me.
Yeah.
And it's so different than like living with like a sibling, because like sibling, you just like knock on the door and you're like, what the hell, open the door. But like with a friend, you're like, ooh, I don't feel comfortable like bothering them. I don't want them to get mad at me,
especially because at that time we had only been friends for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it was so interesting. And I like at one point knocked on Marissa's door and she opened it and I was like, hello, can we talk? And I was like, I know that you like love me, but I feel like you don't really like me. And we like had to have a conversation. That was the first time we really had like a talk.
Yeah.
Where it was like, okay, let's talk about our boundaries and
our
how
feelings.
We can express them.
Yeah.
And and like I cried. You didn't cry.
I was going to work.
Yeah, T. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have bothered you at that time.
I had to leave for work in like 10 minutes. I feel like I probably would have cried. I think I was just like self-disciplining. Like I was like, I need to do this, but I also need to go to work after this, so I can't like fully do this. Yeah, but I think that every time we've talked about this, I've always been really puzzled by it. Like I've been like, why did my like desires change so much? But I think it was just that I experienced really heavy extremes. Like in high school, I didn't really socialize at all. Like I spent so much time alone in my room. And even like before high school, like I was just always like a very independent, introverted person who was alone a lot of the time. So I went from that extreme to then the extreme of our like freshman, sophomore years, where I was like, oh my God, there are people around me who I love and they love me. And this is insane. This is such a new experience. So it was like that extreme. But then like, I realized that was too much. So then I went back down to the opposite extreme where I was like, I can't take any of that. Yeah. And then eventually I figured out how to kind of balance both of those things better.
Yeah, I mean, it is really funny to look back and think about how much time we physically spent together.
Yeah.
You know, our sophomore years when we were in like year 2 of being friends. But even like our freshman year, we didn't hang out until the very end. So it was sort of like our first year of friendship. Mm-hmm. And we hung out all the time. And so it's not confusing to me why I was like suddenly so like sad or like confused about what you were doing, but
it like took a toll on you emotionally.
It took a toll on me emotionally, and it makes complete sense like in hindsight, but at the time I didn't really get it. And now like it makes sense now when you think about like the last few years have been very balanced. So it's like, oh yeah, it was like one extreme and to the next extreme to the balance.
Yeah.
It was just like finding that. But like at the time, it's like obviously I didn't know what the future was going to have in store. So I was like, what's going on? Does she hate me?
Yeah, I think that it's important for friends, honestly in general, but also friends who want to move in together to talk about it if they don't always want to spend every minute together. Because I could see people, like if you didn't know me well enough to know that I wouldn't want to like hang out 24/7, you could have moved in with me and been like, we're going to like eat every meal together. We're going to cook every meal together. We're going to go do everything outside together. We're going to watch TV every night. You know what I mean? Like if you don't know what anyone else prefers unless they tell you.
Right.
So it was important for us to already know those kind of boundaries before moving in together, because neither of us expected more or less, I guess, from the other than we knew we'd probably get.
Yeah, and when we say moving in together, we did again, like live in the same dorm our junior year, and then we lived in an apartment for one semester during our senior year, or at least I only lived there one semester.
Yeah.
But we're really talking about like when we moved into apartment 6.
Right, because we didn't really have the full like start to finish apartment experience with that other apartment that you moved into later, because it was like you weren't, obviously we like valued your opinion because we knew you'd be moving into it later, but like you weren't really as involved in the search for it.
I literally wasn't there.
Like, yeah, you weren't there, but I think we like texted you something. I don't remember. But yeah, it wasn't like both of us were like making these decisions together and like talking it out, and then like moving in at the same time, moving out at the same time. Like we did not have that like start to finish experience.
Yeah, and we were also like, there were other people there to be like buffers. Not that we ever used them as buffers, because honestly, I don't really think we did. But,
yeah,
like,
we didn't need to. But I think that kind of brings us to another thing we wanted to mention, which was that when we actually did get to do the apartment hunting experience together at the same time, we really valued something that we did in that process, which was each independently making a list of basically ideal factors for an apartment. So this was Jess's idea. I'm explaining this, but it was her idea. I'll give you the credit. So it was my idea. I'm not smart enough.
It's totally fine. I don't.
No, so we like planned to meet up at a coffee shop that we often liked to meet up at, because again, we weren't living in the city together at this point.
Bagels.
Yeah, they're really good. Quarantine stinks. Anyway, so we planned to meet there, and we each independently made a list of just kind of like qualifications, like ideal budget, ideal like space allocation, as in like living room to kitchen and things like that, and like proximity to the T and to our jobs in downtown and neighborhoods, all of those types of things,
amenities that we wanted. Then we like, oh wait, sorry,
no, you take it.
So then when we sat down, we talked about like what were non-negotiables for us,
right?
So like price was a non-negotiable. We had said what Marissa's going to get at is the fact that when we put our individual lists together, we had all the same stuff, like everything. I don't think there was even one way that we were off, except like maybe one of us like wasn't as passionate about something. Like for one of us, something would be a non-negotiable, and the other person would be like, I could take it or leave it. So if you want it, then that's what we'll do. Yeah. Like to proximity to the T, it's like one of us maybe was like, I'm willing to walk like 20 minutes, and the other one was like, I'd really like to be like right on Com Ave, or I'd really like to be, or I shouldn't say Com Ave.
Well, we're not.
We're not.
That's not revealing our address.
Oh boy,
we're not. It's true. We're not on Com Ave.
I know. I just feel overwhelmed. Okay. So we like sort of made a list of like all of our things separately, and then put them together, and then we're like, well, what's like a non-negotiable for you from your list? Like, what should we like really be searching for when we're looking for apartments?
Yeah.
Because you know how you can like plug in certain things on Zillow and whatever. And then from there, we plugged in things on like Zillow and apartment.com. And when we found a few, I called like the realtors that were listed for those apartments, and we ended up finding our realtor, who was amazing.
Your boy.
Yeah. Big fan. Have recommended him to people, and we ended up finding this way. This was actually the first apartment we toured. We went on to tour several places after this, and we just knew.
Like, it was love at first sight, I think.
Yeah, we were just like, oh, that's just it. Like, we haven't liked anything better. Like, oh, this one is like closer to the T, or this one, is closer to downtown, or this one has a bigger kitchen or whatever. But when it came down to it, we just knew. And we would like try to talk ourselves out of it, because we'd be like, no, I don't know, maybe we want to be a little closer here, or a little closer to there. And then we would be like, yeah, but like if you had to flip a coin, like what would you want it to land on? And we both were like, we just really liked this place, like we could see ourselves in it.
Yeah, I think that the best way to describe it is like, we got the feeling that people say you should get when you tour colleges. That like when you, or even when you like try on wedding dresses, like any like big decision in your life where you're supposed to like be in that space or be doing that thing or trying on that thing, whatever, and you just like know that it's right.
Yeah.
That is a great feeling to have when you're apartment hunting.
Yeah, we just felt really good about it, and it met all of our qualifications, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Of course, now I wish it had in-unit laundry,
I know.
but you know, at the time that wasn't one of my non-negotiables, so
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the only thing that's different about this place than we maybe expected out of an apartment was like the proportions of the kitchen and the living room.
yeah, we had originally said we would value a larger kitchen over a larger common space.
Yeah.
Because we just felt like we could use the storage there and that we wanted to, you know, have plenty of room to go. We both hated our last kitchen. It was awful.
The whole apartment.
We hated the
we
whole
could
apartment.
Honestly, like, maybe not because there's just like so many specific things, but like it could make a whole podcast episode to talk about the last apartment.
Yeah, let us know if you want to hear about the worst apartment experience we've ever had and probably will hopefully ever have.
It is the worst one. That's one thing, and that's like, I hope, a source of comfort to anybody who is right now living in an apartment situation that they don't love. Usually it tends to be the last one of its kind.
Yeah, you'll
like,
never make that mistake again.
Yeah, like maybe, I'm not saying life is perfect and like the next place you go to won't have its own set of problems, but most likely you will never experience the same problems again, because if they're worse enough for you, like if they're bad enough, you won't choose to live through them again.
Yeah, let's just say we never viewed another basement apartment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ever. Like, even when our realtor was like, well, maybe, you know, this unit is closer to this place, or it's super, you know, it's really convenient for this, but, you know, it's a basement apartment. No, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Sacrifices.
Yeah. So I guess like going along with non-negotiables, it's also like, I guess that's just a different way of saying deal breakers. Because that's another factor too. Like, I guess, so the non-negotiables are things that you would like really think are essential to your apartment life, but then deal breakers are like things that you absolutely would not be willing to live with. So like, I don't know, if you were like, I don't want to live on a like 10th floor without an elevator or something like that, like that's a valid deal breaker. But for us, I think, our biggest one was no basement apartments ever again.
Yeah, which, no offense if you're living in a basement apartment. It's just that we had such a terrible experience in the basement of an apartment that don't ever want to feel something even close to it again.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it, though. Like, we lived in the basement of an apartment building. We did not live in a basement apartment.
Yeah, that's tea. That is so true.
That apartment was not meant to be an apartment. We were like shoved into this basement to make the landlord extra money.
And we were the only apartment, I guess we can say it in quotes, down there.
Yeah, and nobody even knew that we were down there. So like people would like do their laundry. There was someone who like sang opera. Do you remember that?
That's what I was just going to say. I still have that voice memo.
Yeah.
Plays a clip.
Yeah. You could.
Should I?
Sure.
Yeah, there's a little small sampling of what we had to deal with.
Oh my God,
but
you guys.
There was so much more that we had to deal with. Like, that was like actually a funny situation and a comedic relief, if anything.
Agreed.
Yeah, we'll stop complaining about our shitty old apartment now. But unless you want to hear about it, in which case, let us know. But
that's like kind of another thing, I think. And we already like mentioned this by saying that it feeded into the things that were our like non-negotiables and deal breakers, but I think that having had that awful experience together also made it better to move into a place that we genuinely loved, because we could really like, it wasn't like we had nothing to compare the feeling to and we were like, yeah, an apartment's an apartment, like we've always lived in kind of decent places. Like we both had this like love for this place, and I think that I don't know if we would love it as much if we weren't comparing it to the previous one.
Yeah, I don't know either. Because we had seen other people's apartments like in the city, and I think we would have just been like, oh, it's just, it's like theirs. It's pretty on par with what they have or whatever. But because we had that comparison, that very low comparison, we were like, whoa, this place is a mansion. It wasn't even about space. This place is clean. Like we were like,
just like safe, like feels comfortable. Those feelings are pretty valuable for a living experience.
Yeah.
We've come to know.
We even like the people who work at the building. Like, it's just like...
Oh, yes. We love our maintenance men.
Yeah. Shout out to Fernando.
Love you long time.
We just love him, okay?
Yeah, he's a good doobie.
He is the best. Helped me when I got locked out.
Yeah.
Helped us with our tub.
Yeah.
Just like, we've got some good people.
Yeah, we do. It's just, it's nice to feel safe in a living environment. I think no matter what, the factors are, like physically where you're living, what your apartment looks like, that kind of stuff, and also your roommate and how you feel about them. I think the most important thing is that you feel safe.
Yeah, totally.
And I feel safe with you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All that said, it wasn't always easy. Like I said, there were times where we had to sit down and chat things out and sort of go to the mat for things. And yeah, we definitely, like, when we first, I don't think we have that so much anymore, but like for the first couple of months, sometimes there would just like be discomfort or just some heaviness, and we would end up like, it's not like we would be like, come to the couch, we're talking. It would be like, we'd be watching TV, the show would end, and we'd be like, yeah, so like,
because I think like we're both people who feel a lot of sensitivity and guilt and never want to make anyone else feel bad. So I think that during those times of tension, it was always on our minds for those like first couple months, but it was just that like sometimes we could like compartmentalize it and watch a show together. But then like since it was still there in the back of our minds, it would just like come out in conversation.
Yeah.
But it was like, I think the best way to describe it is like we were fighting about very specific things and decisions, which like is normal when you're having to agree on things for an apartment. Like that's going to happen. But I think what's interesting with us is because we're very like introspective people and we like assign a lot of meaning and feeling to everything. It was like we would be talking about like a wall decoration, but it really was a discussion about like the different ways we were raised and the different
like, you guys, oh my gosh. Like okay, so if you know me, you know that I see Dr. Phil's faults, but I also get so sucked into his show. And he always says, I've learned a lot from him. And I know that, again, Dr. Phil is, a personality for sure. But I've learned a lot from him in terms of how he puts, like I've learned a lot about appropriate vocabulary for naming a situation. And what we were doing is like we would fight about topics, not issues. We'd be fighting about a wall decoration, but it would actually, like you said, be about like, well, my mom does it this way, or my mom does it that way, or well, when I was growing up, I always had this and I want to do that again.
Yeah.
And it like we were fighting about topics, but we're like reflective enough to realize that it's actually not the topic, it's the issue. And we would be like, wait, let's talk about the issue.
Yeah.
And we're really good fighters. Well, except because we're not fighting.
We're good like analyzers, I think.
We're good communicators.
Yeah. But I would say like calling back to us saying that it's like a good thing that we played a lot of roles in each other's life. I do think that like every time you do play a new role in somebody's life, it's natural that there would be discomfort. Like kind of like growing pains, like adjusting pains, moving in pains. Like it's very normal. And I think that it actually made us closer, even though it was uncomfortable, than we would be if we didn't move in together and didn't have those conversations.
Yeah. So this is a good time to answer some questions we got. We posted on Instagram, on our own individual Instagrams and on the Apartment 6 Instagram, asking if anyone had any questions for us on this topic, and we got some really good questions.
Yeah, we did.
We're gonna dive in, and our first one is, what's your ratio of roommate to friendship? And this was from our friend Kareen.
Yes.
And she said, can you give me a shout out? And we said, hell yeah, Kareen. Yeah. Kareen was my suite mate. So we weren't direct roommates, but we shared a suite my freshman year of college. So she's one of the first people I ever met at college. She's remained a friend all through college. And then, so Marissa knew her through me, but then also she was in our suite junior year.
We lived together the summer before junior year.
Yeah, because she was also...
So Kareen has also played multiple roles in my life.
Right, she was also a coworker. She's also biggest fan of our a cappella group. She's been... Yeah. She's played multiple roles in our lives.
Yeah.
And we had a really sweet FaceTime call with her this morning. So shout out to Kareen. And to answer your question...
Let's repeat the question.
What's the ratio of roommate to friendship?
Okay. That's a good one.
That's really hard.
Yeah. So what came to my mind first when I was reading this question was just the way that I talk about you in conversation. Because I know that I've had moments before where I'm like about to say something about you and I get like stuck because I'm like, should I say my roommate Jess or my best friend Jess?
I often say best friend turned roommate, like actually, which is our like tagline on Instagram. And that's because that's literally what I'll say, or I'll say best friend / roommate.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I don't know how we would decide on an exact ratio, but I think another way we could answer it is like, what do we think of first in general? Like, do you think of me
friend?
As... Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I think I value our friendship more than it's like our roommateship is like, I value our friendship enough to like let go of things that might bother me about being your roommate. Not that you really bother me, to be honest.
Thank you so much.
You really don't. But when I think about like the stuff that we were just talking about, like how we would fight about certain topics, it's like it mattered more to me that you didn't feel like attacked by me or like hurt by me in those conversations because you're my friend.
Yeah.
Not because I have to live with you.
And that's also why we both explained ourselves so much, because like we knew when we were like, you know, self-reflecting that those conversations weren't just about roommate issues. They were about friend issues.
Yeah.
And I think we already knew at the time that those conversations would help us understand each other better as friends.
Yeah.
So
should we give a stupid answer and say 50-50?
Just to give an answer?
Or like 60-40.
No, I would say, actually, I would do more like
70-30.
Yeah, honestly. Okay. Bingo. Yeah, I would say 70-30. 70 being friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question was, how do you establish boundaries?
So we talked about this in terms of alone time.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you thought of any other types of boundaries, because that's like a pretty specific type.
Yeah. Well, I feel like when you think of boundaries, there is sort of like that, like how would you describe, it's not like emotional boundaries, but in a way it is. It's sort of like what you feel like you...
Like energy or something.
Yeah, like... Yeah. There are the boundaries that you were sort of describing where it's like, I need my alone time, I need my space from you, or I need to be able to do things independently. But I feel like this could also play into how we think of our space. Like, we're not people who really... For example, like nickel and dime each other. We're not very like, this is my couch or this is my...
I will say, though, now that you say that, that's something I have had to personally work on.
Yeah, well, because you're an only child.
Yeah,
I think that's what it is.
I think that's what it is, too. But it's that and just the way I was raised to think about money. Like my vuvuu, my grandfather, would like sit with a metal box of his receipts and like itemize everything and like check all the totals to make sure they were correct. Like I was just raised to think about money in a very like exact, specific way where like if I owed this person this much, I would give them that much, and if they owed me that much, I would expect the same. But I've had to learn to kind of like be less rigid about that type of boundary. Like money is I guess a boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also like the way that things like chores are divided, or like this might sound funny to people, but like we don't eat the same food. Like
Yeah.
we don't like that's sort of a boundary that we have in place. Like
That's true.
Like Marissa grocery shops for her, I grocery shop for me, and we don't eat each other's food unless we're like, oh, like you should try this.
Right.
Or like, oh, I made this, do you want some? Or like if I bake something, like I'm not fucking gonna eat a whole banana bread by myself. I could, but like I'm not going to. Like of course we're gonna share things like that. Or like she bought like a snack and I was like, oh, I'm like really in the mood for something salty, and she was like, you can open my Hippies.
Oh
yeah,
I gave you my frozen pizza last.
You gave me my
That's
gave me your
when
frozen
you know
pizza.
it's real, because you guys, I love pizza.
To be fair, she was
much.
eating pizza when she gave like it's
Yeah,
not like
honestly,
I took the pizza out of your mouth. You were eating a different pizza, and I was like, I kind of am in the mood for like a plain cheese pizza, and you were like, I have one in the freezer.
It's like, I got a backup. You can have my backup.
Yeah. But that's something like we make separate meals. Like we don't make a dinner with each other, or one person makes like cooks, and then like we don't do that. And I think that's sort of like a couple-y thing to me. But I've had people be like, oh, like our roommates, like someone will cook and then we all eat that. And then.
Well, I also think that like and like this is a whole branch of my life that like maybe I could talk about another time. But I have a lot of issues with like noise that people make. And it's really hard for me to eat with other people just in general, because even if like you're very good, so what I'm talking about, it's called misophonia, and it's just like,
you should do a solo episode on this.
I could talk a lot about it, but it's just like it's an unrecognized mental illness basically. And it's sort of, I guess it would be characterized as like an anxiety disorder type if it was categorized.
It brings up similar stressors that anxiety brings up, like physical
it kind
stress
of
sensations.
Brings the fight or flight response.
Right.
That and like rage. Like it just makes me feel really angry when I'm with someone who I can hear them chewing. But conversely, it even makes me uncomfortable to eat in front of other people, because I'm like, even if I know they don't feel the same way as I do, I'm like very aware of the noise I'm making.
Yeah.
So it just like we'll do it from time to time when we're like watching a show and when there's like something to look at. But yeah, I just like, I could never be the type of person to like eat dinner with their roommates every night, basically.
Yeah. And we don't, a lot of times we're just like, we go in our rooms, and we also don't have like a dining room or kitchen table or anything like that. It was like, again, that was just something we didn't value. We didn't value having.
It was not a non-negotiable.
So yeah. So how to establish boundaries? Like if the question is literally like, how do you go about establishing them? Talk. Just talk. And like that can be part of what you do if you are talking about moving in with a friend or anyone, and you're deciding on non-negotiables for the apartment. You should also decide on what your boundaries are, and explain them in a delicate way that makes the person understand them. So it's not about, Jess, you chew like an animal and I don't want to hear it. It's I actually would really prefer to watch my own show while I eat in my room. It's some of the only time that I'm alone during the day without thinking about work or thinking about, stress or anything like that. Like it's explaining things in a nice way.
Yeah, just from a point of like kindness. Like it's never about being like, I don't want to spend time with you ever. It's more about like, I don't want to do this particular thing with you because it affects me in this way, but I'd prefer to spend this type of time with you or whatever.
Yeah, I think like meeting in the middle and also making it like a trade-off. So being like, I really would like this, but if there's anything that you want, please let me know that, because I'll respect your time in return. Also, I don't chew like an animal.
Can confirm. You're good about that. Okay. I'm wondering which one we should do next, because there's a question about together and alone time, but I do feel like we talked about that earlier. Do you agree?
I feel like it's just making sure we say what we need, and if someone's door is closed, just because, you know, they need that alone time. But a lot of times now, like if Marissa's like reading a book and is like alone, she even just has her door open, and it's just sort of like realizing that if someone's like in a common space, then we're probably more down to hang out. Or it's just asking, like you'll just ask me like, want to watch a TV show? I'm like, yeah, okay. Just like we just ask, and then if the other person says no, then so I'd say we probably spend like 50% of our time alone and 50% together.
Yeah. Sometimes
more, sometimes less. It depends.
Yeah, it might be a little more time alone, but
yeah. Especially with work.
Right. Well, that's I mean, our situation now is obviously pretty different than it used to be, but
right, because it's like I think before we would have considered it like alone time versus together time, like when we're in the apartment, but we weren't in the apartment for like whole portions of the day. But now like we're in it, but we're like working, so it's like doesn't really count. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think we've become pretty good at doing that. Next question is, what's something you've come to value about the other person that you didn't until living together?
I love this question.
Yeah, I do too. I should have thought of an answer.
I know. I was just thinking that. I was like, I love this question, and I didn't prepare for it.
Same. Oh, no. Okay.
Should we take a moment?
Yes.
I'll cut out this moment so you guys don't have to hear the moment.
Okay, but just imagine it, and imagine that it's full of lovely thoughts. And we're back.
We're back.
That's from something, but I don't know what it is.
This has been
a moment, a moment of contemplation.
Imagination.
That's what I was going for.
All right, what you got? What do you like about me? Again, the question is, what's something you've come to value about the other person that you didn't until living together?
I mean, I have a couple things, but I think, and this like makes it seem like I'm turning it towards me, but I'm not. It's I think it's and maybe maybe this will sound weird given that preface, but one thing that I've valued a lot is how much you understand me. So like, I get that could sound like I'm talking about me now, but I'm not. I'm literally talking about like how you have internalized my like thought processes. Like you know me really well, and so I don't feel like I have to explain a lot of things to you. Like if something happens where like I get a text from a friend that like upsets me or something like that, I can kind of just like read you the text and you know why it would upset me instead of me having to explain too much. So yeah, I would say that's one. And then going along with that, it's just like you're very good at talking about things through.
Thanks.
Like I just think we have really, really good conversations. Like when something important, even when not important things happen in our lives. Good enough
to like maybe have a podcast.
Yeah, who'd have thunk it?
Just kidding. Sorry. Go on.
But like, yes, we can talk about like unimportant things all the time, but especially when something really important happens in like my life or your life, I think you're just like a lot better than I am about vocalizing things and talking about things. So then having conversations with you gets me to vocalize things that I might not have even thought about. Because, and that kind of goes along with the first point about you kind of already getting it. So it's like, I don't need to waste the whole conversation explaining myself to you. It's more like we can talk about new feelings related to it.
Yeah.
Like you're like, I already understand why you would feel that way. Then we like go further.
Yeah.
So I think the bigger point is just like you help me dive deeper into situations and conversations.
It's all the Dr. Phil.
Maybe.
Just kidding. Maybe.
All right. Give me the goods.
That's so nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mine is kind of similar in a way. I was going to say the stuff not spoken, like the sort of unspoken understanding that we have. For example, I don't even know if we talked about this, but the other night I went for a walk and I didn't get home until kind of late. And I got home and your door was open and you had your light on and you were reading. And within probably like 5 or 10 minutes, you were like, okay, good night. And it occurred to me after that you were probably waiting up for me to make sure I was okay.
That's true.
But I didn't, and it wasn't, I didn't ask you to do that. I didn't even expect you to do that because I didn't even know that I was going to be out for like I ended up walking for like 2 hours, but I didn't expect to do that. And then I was like, oh, I feel bad if I like kept her up. That being said, it was only like 10:15.
I know.
And it was a Friday night.
That's me.
It was a Friday night. So like I didn't feel that bad. Yeah. But I was like, I think I did make a comment about no. That was a different time. But you just sort of assumed like, oh, the nice thing to do here is to make sure my friend gets home okay. Yeah. And yeah, it's like, and then similar thing, like we have like unspoken things that we expect from each other. If one of us is going out, we expect the other one to be like, hey, do you need anything? Mm-hmm. And it's like, we don't have to be like, hey, I would really appreciate if you'd ask me if I need anything from CPS. Like we just always ask and we always wait up for each other and we just always give each other courtesies without having to talk about that. And I feel like that's something that until I lived with you, I didn't necessarily know that you did that I did that we had that. Yeah. So I guess it's not something specific. It's something that I appreciate about our friendship that I didn't necessarily give a lot of thought before living together.
I think I think there's kind of this aspect of being friends and living together that kind of makes you each other's like primary caretakers in a way. Like there have been some times where I have had like stomach issues and you've just like gone out to CVS, like it's no big deal, you just like grab me what I need. So and like if you ever like, you know, got sick, like I would do the same. I would help you get wherever you need to go. Like I think there's just this understanding that we like kind of have to rely on each other, but also it's not just about the fact that we have to, like we want to because we care about each other.
Yeah, like my mom said to me at the beginning of the pandemic, she was like, are you going to be comfortable in your apartment? Like, do you physically have what you need there in terms of medications if one of you gets sick? She was like, are you and Marissa comfortable taking care of each other? Because like she was like, put it this way, if Marissa gets sick, are you going to be like, oh my God, I got to get out of here? Like, are you going to like, or like, she was like, have you guys talked about that? And I was like, we're good. We're good. Like, I was like, we're in this boat together. If one of us gets, you know, coronavirus, we're going down.
Well, we're not
we're
all the way down.
Fine, but like, what did you say?
I said, hopefully not all the way down.
Yeah. I think we probably, knock on wood, be okay. But the idea is that I was like, nah, Mom, it ain't like that. I was like, we're pals through and through.
That be trust.
That be trust.
We be trusting.
Yeah, and I think we should end on the question. We have like a few more questions, but I feel like
we've been blabbing.
And also like we get the point. But I think to end this, there was being a roommate a threat for friendship, a threat for your friendship, especially during lockdown. I think it could have been, but it wasn't. Yeah. And I wasn't worried about it. There have been times where I felt a little rocky. Like I may like get in my head and feel really anxious about it. Like if we've had like sort of like some sort of like tiff or some sort of argument, I'll sometimes be like I'll go off into my head and be like, this could be like the end of our friendship and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, wait, it's probably, and then you'll like come to the kitchen and be like, I'm sorry, man. I don't think you've ever called me man, but it'll be like, hey, I'm really sorry. And I'm like, oh yeah.
But fine. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that like anytime we do have sort of like tension or awkwardness, it's because of us as individuals. Like it's because we're feeling off that day or we're not like the happiest that day. And like, that's kind of how I see, like, I think the person who asked this question probably meant like, does being in such close quarters with each other jeopardize your friendship? But I think it's more like this situation can bring out a lot of feelings, and it can give you off days. It can make you feel anxious. It can make you feel stressed. So I think that it's more like that. Like if either of us isn't completely feeling 100%, maybe that's when things would get a little awkward. But I don't feel like we've had any situations that are because of us two, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I get what you're saying. Yeah, like there are outside factors that put pressure on our friendship in that way.
So.
Like we are now forced to stay in our apartment, and like that can put pressure and cause tension instead of us just like being rude to one another or something.
Yeah, like it's no, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, if I've been like snippy with you, it's not because of anything you've done. It's because I'm in a bad mood. So
Yeah.
it's not, it hasn't like, I don't think affected us as roommates, but it's like affected us as people because it's caused us to have some bad days.
Yeah.
And it's just about sticking with each other through those days.
Yeah. But as for like if living together ever was like a threat to our friendship,
Like besides lockdown?
yeah, because they
Yeah.
said especially during lockdown. But
Yeah.
I think like in general, like yes, like when you live with someone, it sort of could be like a threat to whatever kind of relationship you have with them. But it's never felt like that. So no, I don't think we've ever had anything like feel like this could be the end.
And I think that's because we always put our friendship above everything else.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be a lot easier to be more mad in the long term at someone who you don't really have stakes with.
Yes. I'll end this by saying a friend is a friend till the end of till the end of the end, that's forever.
I'll end this by saying F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me.
Ukulele.
N is for nowhere, no time at all. Just down here in apartment 6. You like what I did there?
What is mine from? I think mine's also from SpongeBob, isn't it?
I kind of, yeah, that's my inkling.
A friend is a friend till the end of the end.
I think
that's
so.
Forever.
I think so.
I'm not. That's like not really well in my range. Like there's something awkward about that to me.
Capella be like.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted questions. I think it brings a whole new level to the podcast when we can feel like we're actually telling people what they want to know and they're engaged in what we have to say. So it felt really nice to have people submit questions.
It was fun to chat and talk about our experience living together through the years and,
Yes.
you know, reflect back on moving into apartment 6. So we hope that you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.